Good evening. It's been quite a day. We learned that President Trump said if Republicans don't do well this November, there will be violence. And he didn't mean it metaphorically. Actual violence, he said. John Berman here in for Anderson. The president said that to evangelical leaders, and we'll tell you more on that in just a moment. First, though, breaking news. Late reporting in the Washington Post on the possible fate of Jeff Sessions, Attorney General of the United States and the president's longtime personal punching bag. According to the Post, the president has, in recent weeks, privately revived the notion of firing him. This follows reporting on Friday from CNN's Jim Acosta, and there is new urgency now because of what Senator Lindsey Graham said about Sessions earlier today.
And I supported Jeff from the very beginning. He is it's always been a friend. It's not about the lack of friendship. It's just that I see a relationship that seems to be deteriorating by the minute. And we need an attorney general that has the confidence of the president. And if that can be repaired, this relationship, fine. But again, I just don't see that happening.
Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell also weighed in, saying he has total confidence in the attorney general. However, he's not the one who would fire him. The president would. The Post's Josh Dawsey has much more on that. His reporting starts us off. All right, Josh, what are you learning?
So we reported tonight that President Trump, on at least 2 occasions of the past month, has asked his lawyers about the wisdom of firing Jeff Sessions, his attorney general, and suggested that he wanted to fire Jeff Sessions. Obviously, his opprobrium and frustrations with Jeff Sessions are widely known. He has taunted him on Twitter. He has made fun of him in interviews. Jeff Sessions has fired back. The Wall Street Journal reported separately this afternoon that 5 senators recently made a remarkable trip over to DOJ to convince Jeff Sessions to stay.
Let me just make sure I get this straight. He's asking his lawyers who were representing him in a criminal investigation about the wisdom of firing the Attorney General of the United States?
Right, and it all goes back to what the president sees as the original sin, the recusal from Jeff Sessions from the investigation. When these various developments flare up, when there's an indictment, whether there's news the president doesn't like, whether there's even just a sharp amount of media attention on the probe, he blames Jeff Sessions maybe more than anyone else, and he goes on long tirades and rants about his attorney general. He has said to many people he wants his attorney general to protect him like he thinks Eric Holder protected Barack Obama. And he is not, fond of having Jeff Sessions continue on the job. Now, what has happened on the flip side, John, is that his advisors have said this really won't solve any of your problems. It will create new problems. And Republican senators and Mitch McConnell are saying, we don't know if we can confirm anyone else. So then you're stuck with Rod Rosenstein, the number 2, who is leading the probe already because Jeff Sessions is recused.
So let me ask you, your reporting is that, again, his lawyers who are representing him in a criminal investigation, were they able to convince the president that he shouldn't fire Sessions until perhaps after the midterms?
For now, though, it's always a bit of a delicate dance in the White House. Advisors will say they've convinced the president not to do something, and then he will tweet it. The sense that we got from several days of reporting here, John, is that the president is going to fire Jeff Sessions at some point. It's not going to last forever. The question is when.
Yeah, it's not an if, it's a when. How does the fact that senators, including Lindsey Graham, now I know there are some senators, including Mitch McConnell, saying don't fire Jeff Sessions, but there are others now who seem to be opening the door to the notion that they don't think Jeff Sessions should be there anymore. Is that emboldening the president?
Well, it's hard to say. It is interesting that Lindsey Graham, Chuck Grassley, some other Republicans who are staunch proponents of Jeff Sessions and has defended him repeatedly against the president's urges to fire him in the past are now saying, listen, it's kind of inevitable. Lindsey Graham said today, hey, Jeff Sessions, he'll probably get a new attorney general. Chuck Grassley has basically alluded to that as well. We talked to a number of senators, my colleague Gabriel Pogren did today, 10, 15 Republican senators on the Hill, and none of them felt that Jeff Sessions was safe. So when you have a president who is being not buttressed by his advisors to, they're really trying to convince him not to do something, but he's sensing maybe there is a window here to do it. I think it does not bode well for the future of Jeff Sessions and the fact that Sessions, who has been something of a warrior for the president's agenda on immigration, on ICE, on other issues, taking a lot of guff from the president, the taunts, the tweets, now suddenly seems to be tiring of it a little bit. And some of our reporting indicates that maybe he just doesn't want to do this forever, to wake up and be humiliated seemingly every week by the president for something that happened a year and a half ago.
Watch this space. Josh Dawsey, thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.
All right, let's talk about all of this, including what Lindsey Graham had to say. Something people quickly noticed was the complete opposite of what he once said about firing Jeff Sessions. Take a look at that.
I'm 100% behind Jeff Sessions. The chairman of the Judiciary Committee sent a pretty chilling tweet yesterday. There will be no confirmation hearing for a new Attorney General in 2017. If Jeff Sessions is fired, there will be holy hell to pay.
So from hell to pay to A-OK. Here to talk about it, two of Harvard Law School's finest, Professor Alan Dershowitz, author of The Case Against Impeaching Trump, and his erstwhile student, CNN chief legal analyst Jeffrey Toobin. I actually once delivered mail to Harvard Law School, so this is bound to go well tonight. Jeffrey, you hear Josh Dawsey basically say it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. I mean, there's nothing new about musing about firing Jeff Sessions, but now that you have some senators, including Lindsey Graham, saying, you know what, this is going to happen, it does change the dynamic.
Absolutely. And let's remember, what Donald Trump is angry about is when Jeff Sessions did the right thing, when he recused himself in the Russia investigation, which was absolutely the right thing to do. But Donald Trump doesn't think the Attorney General works for the American people. He thinks the Attorney General works for him, like Rudy Giuliani works for him. Jeff Sessions is now a dead man walking. The Republican Party is the Trump Party, and they will confirm, if they remain in the majority, whoever the president puts up. The dominoes have started to fall. Lindsey Graham, the other senators, they're not protecting Sessions anymore, and he's gone after the election.
Well, we'll see what they do ultimately if and when there's a new nominee. One thing's clear, the president has the power to fire him.
No question.
That can happen without the Senate. Whether or not they confirm, we'll see. Alan, before we get to that point, the president's asking his personal lawyers about this. He's asking, Rudy Giuliani and Jay Sekulow, who are representing him in a criminal case, about firing the Attorney General. Is that appropriate? Are those the guys you should be going to?
Well, certainly he is asking them because he wants legal advice to avoid obstruction of justice or giving ammunition in any way to Mueller. And so he needs advice both from his personal lawyers and probably also from the White House counsel. The White House counsel will tell him he's empowered to do it, but it's not a wise idea. And then he wants advice from his personal lawyers, which he's entitled to get because he is under investigation, as to what impact this could have on the investigation. Now, let's remember this is deja vu all over again. Bill Clinton went through this. He did not like Janet Reno. He did not like the fact that she appointed a special prosecutor, but he eventually bit the bullet and realized that the political cost of firing Janet Reno, who he didn't get along with and didn't speak to for the last years of his term, would impose a much higher cost. Here the stakes are even greater. It's so complicated. If there weren't a special counsel, the president would, of course, fire Sessions immediately and replace him. But the fear is if he fires Sessions, he might appoint somebody who would then fire the special counsel, and we're on to the Saturday Night Massacre, and that would be hell to pay. So I think that Lindsey Graham was right the first time and not right the second time.
I don't think there would be hell to pay. I think, the Republican Party is the Trump Party now. And if he installs a new Attorney General, that Attorney General may well fire Robert Mueller. And, Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski and Mitch McConnell, they'd say, oh, I have real grave concerns about that. But he is the president and he gets to make those decisions. He has a free hand because the Republican Party will never do anything to stop Donald Trump.
Professor?
But remember that the Democratic Party may control the House in the next few months. And remember also that until and unless Mueller is fired, I don't think he's going to get fired, he can bring about a hellish result too. So I think hell to pay is still appropriate. I think the president should not at this point fire Sessions. I think it would create the appearance that he was trying in some way to end the investigation. He has the power to do it, but I think it would be a terrible political mistake, and also it would be a mistake in terms of what's best for the American people and faith in our system of justice.
It would create the appearance, Alan. It would create the fact. The only reason he is interested in getting rid of Jeff Sessions is because of the Russia investigation. This isn't an appearance issue. This is a fact issue.
Professor?
here we have our old fight again. I do not think a president can be guilty of obstructing justice by engaging in a constitutionally protected act.
But, Professor,
and
that's different than what Jeffrey was
We've disagreed about that from the beginning of time.
This is different,
Yeah.
Jeffrey.
It's a very-
I'll let you silence
Yeah.
that while I pose my question here. It was ringing just at the right time for me to get my word in here. Whether or not he has the right to fire Jeff Sessions is different than the reason behind firing Jeff Sessions. The president has
I don't
told
agree
us.
with that.
Well, no. Look, you can decide later on whether it's obstructing justice. You can't argue that the president has told us that he doesn't think Jeff Sessions should recuse himself and feels betrayed by the actions of Jeff Sessions. He's told us what he's
I have
upset
no doubt about that.
Right.
I have no doubt about that. And he never would have appointed Jeff Sessions to be Attorney General had he known that Sessions was going to recuse himself. My disagreement with Jeffrey, and it's a fundamental disagreement, and we may never know the answer to this, is that a president, in my view, can never be charged with a crime for exercising his constitutional authority, even if he's badly motivated the way George H.W. Bush was badly motivated when he pardoned Caspar Weinberger and the 5 other people. If the act is constitutionally authorized, it cannot at the same time be a crime. You can't probe the motive of a president in deciding whether something's a crime. Jeffrey disagrees, and if he were in my class, we'd have a great debate about that, and I would grade him A+ for his great arguments, even though I would think he might be wrong about it.
I wish I had gotten the A+ in real life.
Yeah,
but
finally getting the laudits he deserves there. Ultimately, it is in Jeffrey's opinion, maybe not even your opinion, Professor, that matters here. It's going to be Robert Mueller's. It's what Robert Mueller chooses to argue along the lines of obstruction of justice. We will see. We do not know yet.
And it's up to the court. It's up to the court eventually, not Robert Mueller.
Eventually,
Robert Mueller's only a
although
prosecutor,
depending on the
right?
strength of what Robert Mueller writes, the deciding body might not be a court. It might be the Congress of the United States of America. So again, Mueller has a lot of power here if he chooses to use it. Let me ask you about timing, because that's vital here. And Jeffrey, I think this gets to where your argument might be wrong, which is that there may not be hell to pay on November 10th.
Right.
If he fires Jeff Sessions. There may be hell to pay if it's next week. There's an election going on here, and I could see Republicans saying, whoa, 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 this is a bad idea until November.
Well, yes, and I think that's what Mitch McConnell is saying. Mitch McConnell is defending Sessions for now, and I don't think he wants the tumult of a firing before November, before the election. But I think whether it's before election day or after, Sessions is gone.
Alan, do you think Jeff Sessions is a good attorney general?
I think Jeff Sessions has been a good attorney general in many ways. Look, I don't approve of any of these policies. I don't approve of the immigration policies. I don't approve of the policy of preventing people from coming into the country based on countries. You know, if you're a Trump supporter, you might think he was a good attorney general, but as a liberal Democrat, no, I don't think he's a good attorney general any more than I think that the administration is a good administration on these issues. So you're asking the wrong person. As to whether he is a good person for Trump, he has had a mixed record. He's strong on immigration, and he hasn't been, quote, loyal. But remember, there's another point, too. We have a very odd system in America in which we expect the attorney general to be schizophrenic. As a member of the cabinet, he's supposed to be loyal to the president. But as the chief law enforcement officer, he's supposed to be loyal only to objective law enforcement. That's very difficult to do. Robert Kennedy had a tough time doing it. Many of the other attorney generals have had a hard time doing it. That's why presidents often have demand loyalists among the attorney general, and they may not be entitled to have a loyalist when it comes to the administration of justice.
All right. Tonight's episode of the soap opera of Jeff Sessions. Alan Dershowitz, Jeffrey Toobin, thanks so much.